You're sitting on the edge of your bed at 17 a.m., staring at your phone. You just found out he betrayed you. Maybe he lied. Maybe he cheated. Maybe he replaced you before the relationship even ended. Your chest feels tight. Your hands are shaking, and part of you still wants to text him. Why? That moment right there is the turning point. Because what you do next will decide who recovers first. You think he won. You think he moved on. You think he doesn't care. But what you don't see yet is what betrayal actually does to someone who depends on your empathy. I'm going to explain why a narcissistic personality can't truly recover after betraying a super empath. And I'll also explain something deeper, why your silence is the one thing they are not prepared for. We'll come back to both of these. First, understand this clearly. You are not just a partner. You are emotional oxygen. You are the one who listened, understood, forgave, explained, softened, and tried again. You are the one who made excuses for their behavior because you saw the wound behind it. That is what makes you powerful. But that is also what made you a target. A super empath does not love halfway. You give presence. You give depth. You give emotional safety. And when someone with narcissistic traits attaches to that, they attach to the supply, not the soul. They attach to the validation, not the connection. So when they betray you, they think they are just moving to a new source. They believe they can replace the attention, replace the admiration, replace the emotional labor. What they don't understand is this: they cannot replace the mirror. You are the mirror that reflected their importance back to them. Without you, they are left with themselves. And that is the part they avoid at all costs. Now here is where it gets uncomfortable. Silence feels like death to you. No contact feels unnatural, it feels cruel. It feels like you are abandoning someone who is already wounded. You want closure. You want answers. You want them to understand what they did. But silence is not punishment. Silence is power. Let me give you the spine line that you must remember. Your silence is your strength. When you go no contact, your nervous system panics at first. You miss the routine. You miss the messages. You miss the version of them you hoped was real. That withdrawal is not love. It is attachment chemistry. And attachment can feel like survival. That is why no contact feels so hard. It activates your fear of abandonment. It touches old childhood patterns. It whispers that if you don't reach out, you will lose them forever. But here's the truth. If you reach out, you lose yourself. Chasing lowers your position every single time. When you text first after betrayal, you communicate that your boundaries are flexible. When you ask for explanations from someone who already showed you their character, you hand them authority over your emotions. And a narcissistic personality reads that instantly. They feel relief. They feel control again. They feel chosen despite their behavior. And when someone feels chosen after betraying you, they do not grow. They repeat. You think chasing will make them realize your value. It does the opposite. It teaches them that your value has no conditions. This is why stepping back changes everything. Not because it hurts them immediately. Not because it makes you look strong on the outside, but because it forces reality to surface. When you withdraw your empathy, your reassurance, your explanations, they are left without the emotional cushion that protected them from their own insecurity. And here's the part I promised to explain. Why can't they recover? Because betrayal only works when the empath stays available. If you stay, they rewrite the story, they blame you, they minimize it, they justify it, they move on emotionally without ever feeling the loss. But when you truly detach, when you stop explaining, when you stop defending yourself, when you stop trying to be understood, something cracks. They begin to feel the absence of unconditional understanding. They begin to notice that the new attention is shallow. They may distract themselves. They may post more. They may date more. They may appear happy. But distraction is not recovery. Your silence is your strength, not because it is revenge, not because it makes you superior, but because it protects your dignity and reveals the truth. You see, a super empath who finally withdraws is not weak. She is regulated. She is aware. She is done negotiating her worth. And when someone who relied on her emotional labor suddenly has to face themselves without that buffer, the discomfort is real. But this is not just about them. This is about you. When you stop chasing, you begin to see clearly. You start to notice how much you overextended, how often you ignored your intuition, how many red flags you softened because you believed love could heal it. That clarity is painful, but it is freeing. And freedom always feels scary at first. Right now, you may still want them to regret it. You may still want them to suffer the way you suffered. That is human. But the deeper victory is this: you stop caring whether they recover or not. And we haven't even touched yet on what actually happens inside their mind when they realize you are not coming back. We'll talk about that. Because the shift is not loud, it is subtle, and it takes time. For now, understand this. The moment you stop chasing is the moment the power dynamic changes. The moment you choose silence over explanation is the moment you begin recovering faster than they ever could. And this is only the beginning. When you step back, something profound happens inside you before it ever happens inside them. Your nervous system, which has been running on anxiety and anticipation, begins to reset. At first it feels worse. You feel restless. You replay conversations. You imagine what they are doing. This is not weakness. This is withdrawal from emotional intensity. Your brain was used to the highs and lows. When you remove the stimulus, it panics. But stepping back is not just emotional distance. It is psychological repositioning. When you stop reaching out, you stop feeding the pattern, and patterns survive on reinforcement. If every time they pull away you chase, the cycle stays alive. If every time they betray you soften, the behavior continues. Stepping back interrupts the reward system. The psychology is simple but powerful. Human beings value what feels scarce. When you were always available, your empathy felt guaranteed. When you explained yourself over and over, your forgiveness felt predictable. But when you withdraw, when you go quiet, when you stop reacting, uncertainty enters their mind. And uncertainty is uncomfortable for someone who relies on control. When you stop reaching out, their first reaction may not be regret, it may be ego. They may think, she'll be back. They may test the silence, they may post things to provoke you, they may wait. But as time passes and you remain still, something shifts internally. They begin to notice the absence of validation. The emotional mirror is gone. The reassurance is gone. The person who made them feel important is no longer participating. And here is what changes in their mind. They move from confidence to curiosity, from curiosity to doubt, from doubt to discomfort. They begin to wonder if they miscalculated. They begin to question whether you were more significant than they admitted. They may not show it openly, but internally the loss registers, not because you were loud, but because you are no longer accessible. Your silence is your strength. When you understand this, you stop seeing no contact as punishment and start seeing it as alignment. You are not trying to hurt them. You are allowing reality to speak. Now let's talk about the hardest part, the urge to text, the urge to check their social media, the urge to send one last message to explain yourself perfectly so they finally understand. That urge will come in waves. It will feel urgent. It will feel logical. Your mind will say, if I just say this one thing, everything will change. But urgency is not clarity looking for relief. Here is what you do instead. When the urge hits, you pause for 10 minutes, not forever. Just 10 minutes. In those 10 minutes, you do not argue with your feelings. You observe them. You say to yourself, I feel anxious right now. I feel rejected. I feel unseen. Naming the emotion reduces its intensity. Then you write the message in your notes app instead of sending it. Get it out of your body without delivering it. Most of the time, after 20 minutes, the emotional charge drops if it doesn't move your body.
Walk, shower,
change rooms, interrupt the pattern physically. Another powerful step is this. Remove easy access. Archive the chat. Delete the number if you have to. Not because you are dramatic, but because you are disciplined. Self-respect sometimes requires structure. Remember, your silence is your strength. Each time you resist the impulse to reach out, you rebuild trust with yourself. And that matters more than whether they regret anything. Now let's shift to what you should focus on daily instead of chasing. First, focus on stabilizing your routine. Wake up at the same time. Eat properly. Move your body. Trauma bonds disrupt rhythm. Restoring rhythm restores power. Second, focus on rebuilding identity. During the relationship, you likely centered your energy around them. Now you reclaim your interests, your friendships, your goals, not as distraction, but as rebalancing. Third, strengthen your boundaries internally. Ask yourself honest questions. Where did I ignore my intuition? Where did I overgive? Where did I shrink to keep peace? This is not self-blame. This is self-awareness. A super empath grows through insight, not denial. Fourth, protect your environment. Limit conversations with people who fuel drama. Avoid stalking their updates. Choose inputs that reinforce strength, not nostalgia. You are training your mind to detach. Understand something deeply. The more stable and grounded you become, the more the dynamic shifts energetically. When you are anxious, the connection felt alive. When you are calm, the connection loses its grip. Your silence is your strength. And here's the deeper truth. Stepping back is not about making them come back. It is about making you come back to yourself. When you chase, you abandon your center. When you pause, you return to it. There will be moments when you doubt this path. You will wonder if they are happier without you. You will question whether you meant anything. But meaning is not measured by their reaction. It is measured by your integrity. As you continue stepping back, as days turn into weeks, clarity grows. You begin to see the relationship without fantasy. You notice patterns you once defended. You recognize that love without respect is attachment, not partnership. And in that clarity, something powerful begins to form inside you. Not anger, not revenge, but standards. We still need to talk about what happens next. What you do if they reach out, what you do if they don't, and how silence reveals the truth either way. That is where this becomes real. Now let's talk about the moment you've been thinking about. What if they come back? Because sometimes they do. Not always with apology, but with curiosity. A message, a casual check-in, a late night. I've been thinking about you. And in that moment, your heart may race again. Old feelings may rise. Hope may whisper that this is the redemption arc. Slow down. If they come back, you do not reward the return with instant access. You do not collapse into relief. You do not hand them emotional intimacy because they knocked on the door. You respond with calm. You respond with space. You respond with standards. This is where boundaries are not spoken with anger, but with clarity. If they want conversation, it happens at a steady pace. If they want connection, it requires accountability. You are no longer available for confusion. You are no longer auditioning for love. Ask yourself simple questions. Has behavior changed, or is it just words? Is there ownership of past harm, or is there subtle blame? Are they respecting your timing or pushing for quick emotional access? A healthy reconnection moves slowly. It tolerates discomfort. It respects limits. If they resist boundaries, that is your answer. Your silence is your strength. Because even if they return, silence has already revealed something. It has shown you whether they can sit with absence. It has shown you whether they reach out from ego or from growth. It has shown you whether they value you as a person or a supply. Now let's face the other possibility. What if they don't come back? What if the phone stays quiet? What if weeks pass? What if you never receive the apology you deserved? This is where your dignity becomes everything. Closure does not come from their explanation. It comes from your acceptance. You accept that their capacity was limited. You accept that their choices reflected their wounds, not your worth. You accept that love without respect is not love. Moving forward does not mean pretending you were not hurt. It means you stop negotiating with reality. You grieve honestly. You let yourself feel disappointment. But you do not chase validation from the person who violated your trust. And here is the truth that sets you free. Silence reveals truth either way. If they come back with humility, silence showed you their fear of losing you. If they do not come back at all, silence showed you their lack of depth. Either way, you win clarity. Your silence is your strength. You began this journey feeling discarded, feeling replaced, feeling confused. But now you see the structure. You understand why chasing lowers your position. You understand why stepping back resets the dynamic. You understand that when a super empath withdraws, something shifts permanently. Let's summarize this clearly. When you were always available, the pattern stayed alive. When you stopped reaching out, uncertainty entered their mind. When you resisted the urge to chase, you rebuilt self-trust. If they return, you meet them with boundaries and pace. If they don't, you meet yourself with closure and dignity. In both outcomes, silence reveals truth either way. So here is your one clear action step. For the next 30 days, commit to no unnecessary contact. Not to manipulate, not to test them, but to strengthen yourself. Use that time to restore routine, reflect honestly, and rebuild standards. Treat those 30 days as training for self-respect, because this is the deeper lesson. You are not powerful because they regret losing you. You are powerful because you no longer abandon yourself to keep someone. There is a calm that comes when you stop fighting for a place in someone's life. There is a strength that comes when you accept that love must meet your standards or it does not enter at all. And there is a quiet confidence that forms when you realize you can survive disappointment without shrinking. Your silence is your strength, not as a weapon, but as alignment, not as revenge, but as self-respect. You do not need them to recover in order for you to rise. You do not need them to understand in order for you to move forward. You simply need to stay anchored in your worth. Stand in that, protect it, grow from it. And when you're ready to deepen this journey and understand how to rebuild your identity after emotional betrayal, watch the next video.